Sarah lay in a state of undress, sprawled on her side of the bed, one arm draped around the man beside her, who was also lost in slumber, a faint smile gracing his lips. On an overnight flight, she found herself seated next to a sizable man who turned out to be the coach of a local NFL team. She stirred awake to find his hand nestled between her legs, hidden beneath her skirt. Welcome to Addy Story, where we share real-life stories that touch the heart and inspire the soul. Subscribe now to join our community, relax, and dive into the stories we have for you. Enjoy. James sat in the Chicago airport, finding it an uninviting way to spend his evening as he watched the boarding process for what he hoped would be his flight home to Raleigh. James and his two sisters were the proud owners of a modest pharmaceutical company established by their father many decades ago. His father created a collection of valuable yet seldom utilized pills that brought profitability to the company, but left little opportunity for expansion. With his parents gone, James found himself in Chicago, immersed in the intricate process of negotiating the sale of the company to a prominent pharmaceutical giant over the past few days. Today, James and his team of legal experts and brokers finalized the deal, entrusting the lawyers with the task of completing the necessary paperwork. James held on to a flicker of hope that he might reach home tonight, yet the odds seemed stacked against him. The final flight of the day to Raleigh was completely filled, and he found himself in the third position on the wait list. He refrained from calling his wife, Camilla, as he found himself at a loss for words. He perched on a bar stool, eyes fixed on the gate, nursing his second gin and tonic, lost in thoughts of the deal and the fortune that awaited him and his sisters. He received more than $11 million, along with a generously compensated transition period with Big Pharma, paving the way for a new lifestyle for him and Camilla. Their twin daughters had already begun to spread their wings, or were at least on the path to doing so. Both were college juniors at UNC, where tuition was a heavy burden. But everything would shift once the deal with the pharmaceutical company was finalized. As the boarding process drew to a close, the agents at the gate were guiding the final passengers onto the aircraft. And then a little miracle unfolded. The boarding sign shifted, and James noticed his name had been added to the waiting list. He tossed the cash onto the bar, gestured to the bartender, who responded with a thumbs up, seized his briefcase and duffel bag, and dashed toward the exit. The agent at the gate presented him with his boarding pass and swiftly informed him and two other passengers that the group of 4 who had checked in remotely had failed to appear, resulting in the allocation of their seats. James sprinted down the aisle with his newfound friends, and upon reaching the gate, he discovered he had a first-class seat, a promising indication, he mused. I boarded the flight. I'm nestled in first class, heading home a day ahead of schedule. This could indicate that the pharmaceutical agreement is likely to finalize. As he stepped onto the plane, the boarding door sealed shut behind him, and the flight attendant inquired if he would like a beverage. As they taxied to the runway, he felt he deserved another drink, so he ordered another gin and tonic, then drifted off to sleep, envisioning a future for him and Sarah filled with enough wealth to always travel in first class. The jolt of impact roused him from his slumber. He finally arrived at the taxi stand to catch a ride home. He had taken his pickup truck to the airport a few days prior, but now fatigue weighed heavily on him, a slight buzz from the drinks he'd had, and the hour was far too late to reach out to Sarah for a ride. They resided a few miles beyond Raleigh, making the cab ride sufficiently lengthy for him to drift off to sleep once more. The driver needed to rouse him upon their arrival. James settled the fare, included a generous tip, and with a hint of reluctance, stepped out of the taxi. The day stretched on, filled with activity and busyness, leading into a bustling evening. As the taxi drove off, his mind drifted to the warmth of snuggling in bed with Sarah, and he turned his gaze toward the house. What he witnessed brought him to a standstill and jolted him into full awareness. A gleaming gold BMW 7 Series sat in the driveway, proudly positioned in front of his portion of the garage. The vehicle appeared to be an exceptionally stylish BMW 7 Series. Yet to him, all BMW 7 Series had an air of sophistication. The house had succumbed to darkness by that time. As the clock ticked past midnight, James remained motionless for several minutes, lost in thought. He had a conversation with Sarah from his lawyer's office around noon, and she made no mention of any late-night visitors. He made an effort to push aside the unimaginable, focusing instead on crafting a joyful vision that would soon have him nestled next to the cozy, drowsy Sarah in mere moments. Yet, his thoughts didn't align with that notion, prompting him to meander towards the door, nestled in the corridor between the garage and the house. He turned the key, stepped into the stillness of the house, and moved deliberately through the kitchen before ascending the stairs to the bedroom he shared with Sarah. The bedroom door stood ajar, seemingly unprepared for guests, as James entered, and then it shut behind him. There was simply no other way to convey it. His mind had come to a complete halt. He ceased to draw breath, and even the rhythm of his heart appeared to halt. He witnessed what he deemed unimaginable. Sarah lay in a state of undress, sprawled on her side of the bed, one arm draped around the man beside her, who was also lost in slumber, a faint smile gracing his lips. James lingered in that moment, time stretching endlessly, until at last clarity returned to his mind. He cast another glance at Sarah's hand resting on the man, and they both snored softly. This shattered James's spirit. Up until tonight, he had found pleasure in the sound of Sarah's snoring. She was snoring softly, a gentle sound that reminded James of a contented purr. He believed her snoring signified a profound sense of security, a deep and tranquil slumber that arose from the intimacy of sharing both a bed and a life with James. The gentle purring sound often lulled him to sleep. But now, he would never experience that familiar snoring again, never share a bed with her again. Despite the ache in his heart, James found himself pondering once more. The man's clothes were meticulously folded, resting on the chair that James had occupied countless times before. Seething anger started to ignite within James. He adjusted his pants, retrieved his wallet and car keys, then paused to reflect for a moment longer. He might retrieve the tennis racket from the bedroom closet and employ it to confront the man. He concluded that he could also surpass Sarah. Although these actions may provide immediate gratification, they could lead to significant issues for James down the line. A new concept started to take shape in his thoughts. He pulled out his cell phone to capture some compromising images. As the concept blossomed and evolved, James completed his photography session and then gathered all the garments and footwear. The man was quite a large figure. James stood at 5 feet 10 inches and had a weight of approximately 160 pounds. The man appeared to be at least 4 or 5 inches taller and possibly 50 pounds heavier. Opting for a tennis racket might not have been the wisest choice, even in the immediate sense. Clutching his clothes and shoes, James cast a final glance at his wife, the woman he cherished deeply, the mother of his beloved daughters, and steeled his heart against the affection that had inspired him for over 2 decades. He exited the bedroom, emotionless, and made his way down the stairs to the outside. The soft beep of the key fob echoed, and the doors of the BMW 7 Series gracefully swung open. James placed his briefcase and duffel bag inside before settling into the driver's seat. He had never been one for extravagant vehicles, but upon stepping into the Benz, he discovered an unexpected appreciation for it. He mastered the controls, shifted the car into gear, and set off on his journey. After approximately a mile, James came to a stop and examined the man's wallet, finding the typical items, some cash and business cards that revealed his identity as Dexter Vance, a seasoned sales manager at a nearby BMW 7 Series dealership, possessing a driver's license that indicated a Raleigh address. James considered that if he had family in the area, he could certainly stir up some significant trouble for him, and perhaps for Camille as well. At that moment, James felt utterly drained and made his way to the closest motel to catch some much-needed rest. Sarah Carter exhibited a remarkable level of caution in her actions. She was aware that her intellect didn't quite match that of her husband, James. Yet her careful nature allowed her to maintain her affair with Dexter Vance for nearly 5 months without raising any suspicions in James. As she lay in bed with Dexter the next morning, she pondered that James was still in Chicago. He had his strengths in the bedroom, perhaps not quite reaching the level of James, but beyond that, he had his own charm. She realized he couldn't measure up to her husband, too reminiscent of a car salesman, leading her to the decision that it was time to bring this affair to a close. Dexter was growing increasingly controlling. He yearned to share the night with her, and she consented, yet it would mark the final occasion for such an indulgence. She envisioned a future with James, and the thought of a stranger sharing their sacred space, even in secrecy, felt profoundly disrespectful. She planned to reach out to Dexter later today, delivering the news of their affair's conclusion with a blend of softness and firmness. She made her way to the shower. In the bedroom, she was in the process of getting dressed when Dexter emerged from the shower, a towel wrapped around his waist. He paused for a moment before turning to Camille and asking, "Where did you take my clothes?" "Excuse me, I haven't shifted anything at all." "Where have all your clothes gone? What are you all up to tonight?" "I arranged them neatly on this chair, yet there are no garments present." "Did you bring them along to the guest room?" "They have to be around here, hiding in plain sight." No," he murmured, making his way down the hallway to the guest room, only to turn back right away. There is absolutely nothing present. There's an emptiness surrounding him. His voice faded as he struggled to grasp the mystery of his vanished garments. "Maybe you forgot to bring everything up from downstairs when we arrived last night?" Camille inquired, with a hint of impatience, reflecting on the fact that they had likely indulged a bit too much the previous night. "No, I'm certain I didn't. However, I believe I'll go have a look," Dexter replied, making his way out of the bedroom. He swiftly made his way back, dashing up the stairs. Camille, my vehicle is missing. My clothes are missing from downstairs. Last night, an intruder entered my space, took my belongings, and made off with my vehicle. Oh, what on earth is happening?" Excuse me, could you please clarify that? Camille struggled to grasp the essence of Dexter's words. How could his attire and vehicle just disappear? The pair remained in the house throughout the night. Is it possible that someone managed to get in? In an instant, Camille fell onto the bed. It was Dexter's moment to inquire, "What? Excuse me?" Camille struggled to find the words. Her breath caught in her throat, rendering her unable to voice a single thought. Dexter? What if it were James? At last she spoke. What if he returned from Chicago while we were in slumber? What would happen if he took your belongings and your vehicle? Oh, Dexter exclaimed, sinking onto the bed beside Camille. It's essential to discover his whereabouts. It might be him. However, if he remains in Chicago, it indicates that a burglar has intruded, which necessitates contacting the police. I need to retrieve my belongings and my vehicle. Oh, this car is quite the nuisance. If we contact the authorities, they'll inquire about ownership. And it's registered under my wife's name for some frustrating tax reason. His voice faded as he envisioned a future that could oscillate between merely unfortunate and utterly disastrous. I will reach out to his office. His secretary arrives at the crack of dawn, and she surely has an inkling of his whereabouts. Camille picked up her phone and called James's office, even though the clock hadn't yet struck 8. James's assistant responded without delay. Welcome to James Trunk's office. How can I assist you today? Hello, Marjorie. It's Camille here. I'm aware that it's quite early, and I'm uncertain about James's whereabouts. He didn't reach out last night. Have you heard anything from him? Camille. It's still early, and I understand that the team in Chicago put in a long night yesterday. It seems likely that they'll begin later than usual today. I had a conversation with James yesterday at around 6 o'clock, just prior to heading home. He mentioned that they were advancing well and could potentially finalize an agreement today. That's wonderful to know. So, he remains in Chicago, correct? Indeed, I have no doubt about that, and I look forward to receiving his update once they return to the lawyer's office. Should I request him to give you a call? Absolutely, but only if he has the availability. This deal holds significant importance, and I fully understand that. Excellent work. Farewell. After the call ended, Camille shifted her gaze to Dexter. James remains in Chicago, so it would be wise to contact 911 and report a break-in along with the car theft. Camille, what should we communicate to them? Can you believe that your partner had his clothes taken from your bedroom and his car stolen right from your driveway? I mean, what on earth? We're in quite a predicament here. All right, I get it. Let's ponder this for a moment. What if I drive you home and drop you off? You put on a facade and recount the thefts as if they occurred in that very moment, while your wife was busy taking the kids to school. Perhaps reporting stolen clothing isn't a common practice for you. This might be more challenging to articulate than a car that's been taken without permission. Indeed, however, I informed my wife yesterday that I would be heading to Nashville for a meeting regarding the new BMW 7 Series, and that I wouldn't return until noon. All right, we can hold off until around noon when you'll return. After driving home, you left your keys in the car for just a moment before heading to the dealership, only to find that your car was stolen while you were inside your house. I believe this could actually be effective. I could claim that I left my wallet in the car, only for it to be stolen as well. We can spend some time here together for a few hours. Perhaps we'll find ourselves in need of another shower, perhaps sharing it. Dexter? All right, I need to reach out to work to request a sick leave. Camille served as a paralegal in a modest law firm. The task was passable, though somewhat tedious. She stepped into the hallway to make a call, then returned to the bedroom to discover Dexter back in bed. She felt the pull, yet after reflecting on James and her choice to conclude the affair, she resolved to decline. "Dexter," she stated, remaining perfectly still, "I believe it's time to bring this to a close. We had a solid journey, but it might have been James last night. We were fortunate that it turned out to be a villain. How about we search for some outfits and then head out to grab breakfast somewhere?" Dexter gazed at her, contemplated the possibility of persuading her, but ultimately acknowledged that she was correct. They had their fortune, yet they must tread carefully. Indeed, with a subtle grin within, he recalled that another appealing middle-aged woman frequently visited the car dealership. "All right, I concur. It was a solid journey. What do you think about some clothing options?" It proved to be more complicated than expected. Dexter outweighed James by 50 pounds and stood 4 inches taller than him. Camille eventually stumbled upon a worn-out pair of sweatpants that appeared to suit Dexter just right. After crafting a few V-cuts at the waist, she proceeded to secure some strings around his waist to keep his sweatpants in place. She discovered a sweatshirt that had faded to pink after being carelessly washed in the washing machine. She carefully adjusted the sleeves and made additional cuts at the armholes, and soon Dexter had his outfit ready. She felt the urge to remark on the clown's attire, yet a subtle smile graced her lips as she gazed at his expression. They chose to watch television until it was time to head over to Dexter's place. That morning, just as Dexter realized his clothes and car had vanished, James arrived at the driveway of the location noted on Dexter's driver's license. The house exuded charm, with a quaint bicycle casually propped against the garage wall. James lingered in the car, lost in thought, pondering deeply, yet no tears fell. The night at the motel slipped by in a blur, and it wasn't until the first light of dawn that he finally ventured out for a run. He found it astonishing that he didn't feel more miserable. Maybe he was still reeling from the experience. He approached the front door, retrieved Dexter's wallet containing his driver's license, and rang the bell. A young woman, likely in her 20s, opened the door. She was attractive, yet appeared somewhat frazzled. James donned a suit purchased just the day prior in Chicago, paired with a white shirt that now appeared wrinkled, and he opted for no tie. He may not have appeared at his finest, but he wished to convey a sense of approachability rather than intimidation. He raised Dexter's driver's license for the woman to view and gestured towards the gold BMW 7 Series. Before he could utter a word, the woman abruptly shut the door in his face, only to swing it open moments later, her cell phone clutched in her hand. "I have 911 on my phone, and I'm prepared to hit send if you can't assure me that my husband is all right, ma'am. I possess an image on my phone featuring your husband and my wife peacefully resting together in bed, unclothed and sound asleep. Honestly, I believe there's nothing amiss with your husband or my wife for that matter. If you need to call 911, go ahead and do so, and I'll just stay in the car." They exchanged a glance, a fleeting connection, before her expression shifted and she stepped aside to welcome him inside. She began to speak, but their attention was drawn to the sound of Mommy calling from the kitchen. "Wait here. I'll be right back," she said, turning away and making her way back to what James presumed was the kitchen. He heard her voice, and at least one of the children's. She came back, offering him a cup of coffee. I trust you enjoy your black coffee. I need to prepare the children for school and then drive them there. I find myself placing more trust in you than in my husband at this point. Feel free to remain here until I return. Only then can we engage in conversation. Is it acceptable? All right, James replied. It seems we share a common situation. He settled into the living room, and before long, a woman entered, accompanied by 2 children. She referred to him as a friend of her father and exited the door alongside them. James sat quietly, sipping on some less than stellar coffee, contemplating a call to his office, but ultimately remained in his seat, lost in thought. Upon her return, the woman ascended the stairs to the living room with quiet urgency. A few minutes later, she returned, her hair neatly styled and her lips adorned with a subtle tint, exuding a refreshed charm. She reached out to James, their hands meeting in a firm shake. She made her introduction. I apologize for the recent upheaval. I am Clara Vance, married to Dexter Vance, who is presently involved with the woman you are married to. James found himself chuckling at her clever wording, and it was a refreshing feeling to share a laugh. You are completely correct regarding the ongoing events right now. I am James Carter, and my wife goes by the name Sarah Carter. He proceeded to recount the events of the previous night, noticing the tears start to stream down Clara's face. I'm parting ways with Sarah, and I believe the photographs will assist me in securing a fair settlement. If you believe you might find them useful, I can send them to your phone. Indeed, I believe I ought to have them, Clara replied, her gaze fixed on James with an expression devoid of life. He extended his hand toward his phone, but hesitated when she urged him to hold off on sending them to her. Should I encounter them, those images will be forever etched in my mind. You hold on to them, and if I require them, I can reach out to you. Indeed, James acknowledged. But then he added that he likely wouldn't remain in his current job for much longer, and he certainly wouldn't be living in his current house anymore. I will provide you with my lawyer's contact information. If you require assistance with photography or need support during a divorce, feel free to reach out to him anytime. All right. Thank you, Clara replied. But what should we do at this moment? Will you be bringing the car back? Will you be waiting for Dexter to confront him? You've noticed him. He's quite a sizable fellow, even if he's gained a bit of weight. Yesterday, he was meant to be in Nashville for a car meeting and to spend the night there. He is expected to return home this afternoon. This car has a certain appeal to me, and I must admit, I've never had the chance to drive a BMW 7 Series before. I believe I'll hold on to it until I'm compelled to give it back. Your husband, and I must say, his name to me is... Clara chuckled, and soon James was laughing too, both of them seeking any escape they could grasp. Clara mentioned that the car is registered in my name, likely for tax purposes, as it may allow for greater depreciation. Dexter, or perhaps I should say, let's put it in my name since I do more driving than he does. She paused for a moment, considering her words, then continued, You know, since I own this car, I can issue a permit for you to drive. If you happen to get pulled over, the police can call me to confirm. James appreciated the concept but chose not to reply, recognizing that Clara was clearly still refining the details. Additionally, she mentioned that there have been numerous break-ins in our neighborhood recently. You possess Dexter's keys and garments. If the key we've stashed in the backyard goes missing by the time he arrives, he may resort to breaking in. Should our security system be activated in instant alert mode, it could draw quite the intriguing response from the police. Clara, I believe I'm experiencing the feeling of love once more. You are truly remarkable. All right, take a deep breath and relax. Dexter can simply hold off until the kids and I return from school this afternoon. However, I can gather them and head to the park for a bit. Let's allow him additional time to find himself in even greater predicaments. Whatever unfolds, please keep me informed, particularly if he encounters any issues with the authorities. Feel free to reach out when you're ready to have your car returned. I hope you steer clear of any trouble. We have completed our work. We both have to leave this place. James drove away in a stunning gold BMW 7 Series, contemplating the price of the same model in a more appealing hue. Clara handed him the permission slip, and he presumed she would retrieve the hidden key, set the alarm, and depart for the remainder of the day. Camille and Dexter made their way to Dexter's house, arriving just around noon. Camilla dropped him off and hurried away, as if eager to escape any lingering threat of infection. Dexter approached his front door, a mix of hope and trepidation swirling within him. He wished it might be unlocked, anticipating Clara's presence, yet he couldn't shake the fear of what that might mean. It was, naturally, locked, and he rushed around the house to the rock in the backyard where the spare key was usually kept, but the stone was nowhere to be found. He muttered to himself, gazing at the rear of his house, contemplating whether he should force his way inside. He attempted to unlock the back door, but it remained secured, leaving him with no alternative but to break in. He gazed at the windows lining the back wall, contemplating which one would yield the most satisfying shatter. He paused at the window overlooking the family room. It was the largest at the back, and shattering it would create an opportunity for him to slip inside the house. He snapped off a branch from the tree he intended to prune and scrutinized the window. As he was without shoes, he required a method to navigate the shattered window glass that he could break. He retrieved 2 chairs from the back porch and positioned them beside the window. He believed he could navigate over the chairs to sidestep the glass and then proceed with caution as he stepped into the living room. With a few deep breaths, he prepared himself for what lay ahead. Dexter hurled a branch through the family room window, and it shattered with a gratifying crack, only to be met moments later by the unfortunate wail of the home alarm system siren. In an even more unfortunate twist, a police car happened to be cruising down his street just as Clara had reached out to the local police station that morning to voice her concerns about possible break-ins in their neighborhood. Damn, 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 Dexter muttered, scrambling to navigate over the chairs in a frantic bid to reach the house and disable the cursed security system. But he wasn't quick enough. Officers, please halt immediately and gradually retreat from the residence. Lift your hands high. Dexter glanced over his shoulder and spotted 2 officers brandishing their sidearms. He followed instructions and only grazed his legs a bit as he descended from the chairs and retreated. Gentlemen, allow me to clarify the situation. As he started to speak, one of the officers swiftly placed his hands behind his back and secured him with handcuffs. The officer dismissed his effort to clarify the situation and proceeded to recite his rights. The officer then inquired if he had anything to express. Indeed, this is my residence, and I, lack a key. so I entered unlawfully to retrieve some clothing and contact my workplace. The officers scrutinized Dexter's tracksuit, possibly judging it as attire fit for a clown, when one of them inquired if he had any form of identification. Oh no, not at this moment. I misplaced my car, along with all my clothes and belongings, and I really need to get inside to grab some proper attire. Could you please explain how you misplaced your vehicle, sir? Last night, I spent the night at a friend's place, and this morning, the car was missing. It simply wasn't. Oh, have you mentioned a puzzling vanishing act? Perhaps it was left behind in a bar at some point. Dexter found himself at a loss. He was reluctant to disclose his whereabouts or the reason for not reporting the car missing. Yet the thought of facing jail time for attempting to break into his own home loomed over him, and the handcuffs were proving to be quite uncomfortable. Then he devised a potential solution that could be effective. Feel free to reach out to my wife. She is able to recognize me, and maybe you could escort me to my office. I can reach out to someone there for assistance in obtaining some clothes. He understood that enduring the nonsense at the dealership was far more preferable than facing incarceration. A police officer obtained Clara's phone number from Dexter and proceeded to make the call. Dexter was able to catch snippets of the police's side of the discussion. "Excuse me, this is RI from the law enforcement agency in Raleigh. We are at the location provided, and there is a man here asserting that he is your husband. He attempted to enter your home due to the loss of his clothing. And indeed, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We will certainly proceed with this. I appreciate it, ma'am." He glanced over his shoulder at Dexter. The woman claims her spouse is in Nashville, asserting that anyone who intrudes into her home must be a thief. She wishes for your imprisonment, with no chance of release. Yet Dexter was on the verge of tears as the officers guided him toward their patrol car, preparing to transport him to the station. Sarah arrived at her office half a day late, determined to make up for lost time. Her thoughts lingering on James, as she still hadn't heard from him. She dialed his cell phone, but there was no response. She subsequently reached out to his office once more. "Greetings, Marjorie. It's Sarah once more. I'm beginning to feel a bit anxious about James, as I haven't received any updates from him yet. What about you?" "No, I have nothing fresh to share. It seems he's still in Chicago with the lawyers, but it's quite unusual for him not to reach out. You appear to be a bit concerned, so I will reach out and inquire about him. Either he or I will return your call shortly." "All right. Thanks, Marjorie. You are the most exceptional secretary in existence." Moments later, Sarah indeed got the call back. "Sarah, it's Marjorie here. I had a conversation with one of the secretaries at the law office, and she mentioned that James departed late yesterday, aiming to catch the final flight to Raleigh. I reached out to James on his cell to see how he was doing. I spoke with him, and he requested that I inform him he would call later. Is it acceptable?" "Thanks, Marjorie," she uttered, detached, as a serpent started to coil within the recesses of her abdomen. James ended the call with Marjorie. He was cruising in a gold BMW 7 Series, on his way to consult a divorce lawyer suggested by Cornelius Blake, his trusted business attorney. He had faith in his business lawyer and wished to extend that trust to his divorce lawyer. "Mr. Thunder, kindly have a seat." The secretary informed him that Miss Reinhardt would be with him shortly. He settled into his seat, feeling a bit more at ease in the lawyer's office, which boasted no lavish furnishings, yet maintained an air of understated elegance. Before he could dwell on his concerns, a 50-year-old woman, slightly overweight and sporting vividly dyed red hair, stepped into the waiting room. "Mr. Thunder?" James rose to his feet and nodded as she went on. "I'm Gwendolyn Pierce." Cornelius reached out and emphasized the importance of looking after you in the best way possible. "Come into my office so we can discuss your situation." James entered a pleasant yet unpretentious office, accepted a cup of coffee from the secretary, and began to share his tale. He discovered his wife's infidelity, sought a divorce, and aimed to safeguard his assets, particularly the earnings from the sale of his business and his sister's enterprise. He bypassed the section of the tale that involved the golden BMW 7 Series, even though he had a hunch that Gwendolyn would find it amusing. "James, may I refer to you by that name?" He nodded, and she went on, "I'm Gwendolyn." "Great news. Well, that's somewhat encouraging, given your circumstances. Cornelius mentioned that you and your sisters had ownership of your company prior to your marriage, which means your shares are classified as separate property. Your wife does not possess any rights to the shares of your company or the profits from the sale. It is essential to maintain a clear distinction between the shares and sale proceeds and any joint account that you and your wife might possess. I believe this to be true. What should we consider regarding our home, retirement funds, and similar matters?" Unfortunately, the news isn't very favorable for you. Given that your salary significantly exceeds hers, you will be responsible for providing child support for a number of years. We might be able to sidestep contributions to the retirement account by raising the alimony amount. I understand it may not seem appealing, but enduring a bit of discomfort now can prevent a far greater issue later on, having to divide your retirement savings many years down the line. Your children are now in college, which means child support is no longer applicable. I take it you're okay with covering their college expenses from here on out? Indeed, that works well. What is the situation with the house? It's essential for you and your wife to come to a decision about what you truly desire. You might choose to sell it and share the earnings, or one of you could purchase the other's share at the current appraised value. Following the events of last night, I can say with certainty that this house is no longer appealing to me. It seems that Sarah may not have the means to purchase my half, which likely leads to the conclusion of selling. Sure, I can handle the paperwork. The divorce petition is quite a typical document, so I can prepare it for you by early tomorrow if that works for you, allowing us to serve it to her in the afternoon. Wow, that's quite quick. Hello, Mr. Thunder James. Please hear me out. If there's an opportunity for you and your wife, where some guidance or simply a bit of time could... Actually, it's just quite a shock for me. Just under a day ago, I felt a sense of happiness. I was eager to return home to my wife and share the exciting news about the company's sale. And now, I find myself contemplating the decision to file for divorce. Yet, we must press on. I will find a way to navigate through this challenge. All right, but if you reconsider, feel free to reach out and we can sort everything out. James expressed his gratitude, settled the advance payment, and exited the office. He strolled back to the gold BMW 7 Series, pondering the events of the previous night, which brought to mind his promise to his secretary that he would reach out to Camille. Camille picked up the phone in her office at the law firm where she was employed. "Greetings, Camilla. It's James here. Did you reach out and search for me?" "Oh, James, I appreciate your call. I've been thinking about you. Where might you be? I'm currently in Raleigh, Camille. So, when did you return? The serpent, nestled within her core, lifted its head. Last night, Camilla. I returned last night, and the snake's bite was a bit severe. Camilla reclined in her chair. She understood the necessity of continuing this dialogue, yet she found it difficult to draw a breath, much less articulate her thoughts. Camilla, I'm ending the call now. No. James, no, she was able to slip away. Could we possibly arrange to meet somewhere? I'm eager to meet with you. I'll only be able to see you for a brief moment. James paused, uncertainty flickering in his mind. This woman was his beloved, the mother of his daughters, the most significant figure in his life for more than 2 decades. All right, Camilla, shall we meet at the Center Cafe at 6? The snake sank its fangs in with even greater ferocity. Camilla found herself in agreement, yet the Center Cafe held a special significance. It was the very spot where she and James had first crossed paths, both enjoying the company of friends long ago. Since that time, this cafe had transformed into a cherished spot for them, and now she felt a sense of fear. What prompted James to make this suggestion? Yet she found herself compelled to agree. James, I look forward to seeing you there. I sincerely apologize and want you to know that I care deeply for you. James ended the call. Camilla wept as the snake continued to bite, again and again. Camilla arrived at the cafe ahead of schedule, but James had yet to make his appearance. She ordered a glass of wine and sat there, reflecting on her shortcomings. Her initial genuine intimate encounters were with robust, powerful football players during her college years. She had her fun in high school, but it was the college football players pinning her down that left her feeling utterly powerless. Upon James's arrival, she believed she had conquered her desire to experience helplessness. James embodied all her desires. He was powerful in their intimate moments, affectionate, a wonderful father to the girls, and a reliable provider. That would have sufficed if it hadn't been for the flight back to Raleigh from the California. James was exploring a pharmaceutical company, aiming to pitch a new drug, and she joined him for the weekend leading up to his meetings. On an overnight flight, she found herself seated next to a sizable man who turned out to be the coach of a local NFL team as she journeyed home alone. They engaged in conversation, indulged in drinks, and she eventually dozed off, resting her head on his shoulder. She stirred awake to find his hand nestled between her legs, hidden beneath her skirt. Reflecting on that night, she realized she ought to have screamed, or at the very least, pushed his hand away, yet Sarah chose not to do either. She felt no guilt, only a sense of relief that James's return was delayed until later that week, allowing her and her body to recover. A sense of guilt enveloped them. This coach spent just 1 season in Raleigh, and Sarah might have returned to being a devoted wife if he hadn't introduced her to a forward from the practice squad before his departure. Neither a star nor a novice, yet equally powerful and commanding in the bedroom as the coach was. Sarah felt a sense of gratitude when she received her assignment. Eventually, the guilt emerged at last. She chose to stay true to James and ended her relationship with her lover. Sarah believed she had put her infidelity behind her as their daughters embarked on their college journeys. She cherished James deeply and relished the moments they shared when the girls were away. Yet, the serpent glided in when James performed a kind act for her. He suggested it was time for her to select a new car, a luxury model that she could pick herself. Unfortunately, she opted to visit the BMW 7 Series dealership, where she encountered Dexter Vance. He didn't offer her a BMW 7 Series, but he expertly navigated the situation to lure her into his embrace. And deep down, she recognized the moral misstep, especially since Dexter's skills in bed left much to be desired. She believed she had successfully navigated her past indiscretions, convinced that her marriage remained unscathed. Yet now, with James, their love had deepened, and she felt a genuine desire to commit herself fully. This was the correct decision, and I shouldn't have engaged with such a fool. Allowing Dexter to stay overnight in his marital bed would have been a grave error, even if James had not stumbled upon them. Yet she had allowed him, and now she dreaded the dreadful cost that could await her. "Greetings, Sarah." Sarah glanced upward and noticed James positioned before her. He appeared significantly older than he had prior to his trip to Chicago, and she recognized that it was due to her actions. The serpent within her gut persisted in its relentless gnawing. "Hello, James. I appreciate your presence. I find it difficult to express the depth of my regret. May I pose a few inquiries?" he remarked as he took a seat. "Oh, James, I beg you, not this. Should we have any opportunity, inquiries and responses will undoubtedly extinguish that possibility. James, let's escape for a few days to a Bahamas island where we can be together, where we can embrace, where—" "Sarah, I kindly ask you. Your perception is quite distorted. If my questions remain unanswered, I will take my leave immediately." The serpent persisted in its assault, yet Sarah understood that she must withstand the agony and allow James to express himself freely, in whatever manner he chose. Perhaps, just perhaps, he might emerge from his anger into a space of reconciliation. "All right, James. Feel free to inquire about anything you wish. Are you aware of the hour I returned home last night?" "That was an odd inquiry," she mused. "No, not quite." It needed to happen once she fell silent. She anticipated his next question, and it was, "Do you know what I saw when I got home, as I ascended to our bedroom? Or perhaps I should refer to it as what was once our bedroom. Indeed, James, I understand the magnitude of what you witnessed, and I can only imagine it ranks among the most harrowing experiences you've ever encountered. I understand that this is completely my responsibility, and I'm pleading with you to hear me out, James. I regret to say that I won't contest the divorce you desire if that is your wish." "Be quiet, Sarah. What's the following inquiry? How many men have come into my life since we tied the knot? If I sense dishonesty, or even suspect it, I will simply get up and walk away." Sarah's initial impulse was to fabricate the truth. The second consideration was that deception carried too much risk. And the third thought was that the union was likely finished regardless. "Three, James. 3 men, whose acquaintance I now deeply lament. Your eyes reveal what words cannot. I sense that our marriage has reached its end, and I accept that truth. You are worthy of someone far greater than I am. I'm ready to go to great lengths for another opportunity between us, but I completely respect your feelings if you choose to distance yourself from me. Reach out to the lawyer, Sarah. Tomorrow, you will receive the divorce papers." James rose and departed. Sarah remained seated, overwhelmed and unable to shed a tear initially. As she pondered James's words, a sharp pang twisted in her gut, and tears began to flow. James stepped out of the cafe, nostalgia washing over him as he recalled the moment he and Sarah first crossed paths there many years ago. He pondered whether this encounter would mark the final occasion for any meaningful exchange between them. Intimacy, he mused with a sense of bitterness, must be the most painful form of closeness. Listening to his wife confess to spending a night with other men and witnessing her with that toad Dexter in their own bed, in their resting place. As she slept, the sound of her snoring filled the room. For heaven's sake, how will I ever move past this? Maybe he could manage 3 nameless figures in the 2 decades they had spent together. Perhaps, with some guidance and a significant amount of embarrassment on her side, perhaps, but he would never move past that moment in their bed. With their union in shambles, he found himself in that cursed gold BMW 7 Series, tears finally streaming down his face. Eventually, James became aware that darkness was creeping in. He cleared his nose, dabbed at his face, and reflected on Clara Vance's words from that morning, which now felt like a distant memory. She instructed him to refrain from sending her images of her spouse resting with Sarah. She sensed that forgiving would become significantly harder if she were faced with tangible proof. James made the choice to reach out to her, convey this idea, and inquire about the status of the BMW 7 Series. "Greetings, Clara. Please respond to the call. Clara, it's James Carter from earlier today. I'm reaching out to check in on you and to discuss what steps to take regarding the car. James, I appreciate your call. I find myself clinging on. For the time being, you may hold on to the car." Dexter finds himself in deep trouble, leaving him without her assistance for the foreseeable future. Issues? I trust you didn't take that drastic step. While that may not be the case, he could lean towards this alternative. He was apprehended for attempting to unlawfully enter our home and reportedly struck one of the officers. He's quite a large individual, and the officer used a stun gun on him. Then an event unfolded during his time in prison. He seems reluctant to discuss it, yet I suspect he might have encountered some form of aggression from another inmate. I chose not to engage with him, and as a result, he had to reach out to his brother to arrange for bail. This implies that his entire family is aware of the situation. Wow, Clara. I can't say I have any sympathy for him, but I definitely feel for you. Your choice this morning to avoid looking at the pictures of him cheating was undoubtedly the right one. Should there be any hope for reconciliation, these photos would certainly complicate things significantly. He returned home a few hours ago, tears in his eyes, expressing his remorse and pleading for me to allow him to stay, at least for the time being. With 2 little ones in the mix, I'm going to work on figuring this out. However, he will face challenges ahead. My brother, a lawyer, advised me to pursue a prenuptial agreement and offered his assistance in the process. Furthermore, I will be managing our finances, at least for the time being. Dexter will be kept on a tight rein, and I intend to pull at his collar often. Continue the great work, Clara. I hope everything goes wonderfully for you. Whenever you're ready to return the car, feel free to give me a call. After the call ended, James remained seated, feeling a twinge of envy towards Clara. It seems Dexter may have gained some insight. Facing arrest and assault charges for attempting to strike a police officer, coupled with his experiences in prison, likely instilled a significant amount of fear in him. James held on to that hope, wishing for the best for Clara and their children. At last, he returned to the motel that served as his temporary refuge. Before attempting to find rest, he needed to complete one final task, reaching out to his daughters, Thea and Eloise. "Hello, Dad." It appeared to him that Thea had responded, They were twins, not identical, yet they could easily be mistaken for being so. They had a similar sound. They attended a prestigious institution together. They pursued the same field, nursing. At least they didn't mirror each other perfectly. They were clearly sisters, yet not so strikingly identical as twins. James frequently acknowledged, though solely in his own mind, that he felt a sense of relief that they were not identical. They excelled at teaming up against him, and he imagined it would be even more daunting if two identical young women were pressuring him into purchasing a car, convincing him to extend his evening, seeking funds for a trip to Florida for spring break, or whatever the day's demand may be. Father, I implore you. Yet he confessed once more, solely to his own thoughts, that he took pleasure in indulging them. Indeed, Janie, you have deduced it accurately, as expected. What seems to be the issue? Hey, tomorrow is Saturday, and I'd love to invite you and your sister to join me for breakfast. Let's say brunch, around 11 at that bistro on 4th Street we used to frequent. That works for me. Hold on a moment. He caught a sound, and then she returned, and Eloise is doing well too. Is it possible for us to do that? He swiftly cut her off, as 6 or 7 of their friends had gathered at their most recent brunch. Let's embark on this journey, just the 3 of us. Is that all right? Certainly, Thea responded, but please share what you need. He cut her off, reluctant to engage in a conversation over the phone, which was already challenging face to face. I have to go now. Looking forward to our meeting at 11. I adore you, and please let your sister know that I hold her in my heart as well. Farewell. And then he ended the call. He wished she would refrain from calling Sarah, yet he found himself unable to express that to her. In that case, she would have reached out to Sarah right away. Tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock would arrive in no time. Once James departed the cafe, leaving her with his ominous advice to seek legal counsel, Sarah found it difficult to stem her tears. She realized she had made a mess of things, had tarnished her marriage, her family, her entire existence. She was aware that her daughters would discover the truth, her parents would be informed, and all her friends would eventually learn about it. She might very well misplace James within her own home. And oh, the poor, poor James. Witnessing her sprawled in their bed, unclothed, likely with that insufferable Dexter who was clearly aroused, this moment must have shattered James, while Sarah's tears flowed on. At last, the waitress approached and inquired if she required a trip to the restroom. Sarah stifled her tears and managed to respond with a quiet, "No, thank you." She settled the bill and departed, making her way to the house that would soon cease to be her sanctuary. Upon her arrival, she discovered a bottle of gin, though it was not quite the right quantity. Insufficient to cause her to lose consciousness, yet excessive enough to hinder her from discovering a way to retrieve James. Once she consumed every last drop, a wave of drowsiness washed over her as she clung to the hope of a miracle that might reunite her with James. At 11 o'clock the following morning, James found himself seated in the bistro when his daughters made their entrance. He examined and sanctioned the draft divorce petition at dawn, then embarked on a 2-hour drive from Raleigh, utilizing that time to contemplate how to articulate his thoughts to Thea and Eloise. However, to begin with, it's the same as always, filled with embraces and affection. How's everything going at school? How is the job going? Meals were ordered and enjoyed, dishes removed, and at last, genuine dialogue unfolded. Dad, we can sense that something isn't right, Eloise started. "You seem to be feeling unwell. Are you here to share some news about a cancer diagnosis or something similar? And if that's the case, where is Mom?" Ladies, I regret to inform you that I have some unfortunate news, though it's not related to anything physical. No one will perish. "Actually, it's Mom," Thea interjected. "She committed an awful act. Can you believe it? Did she actually leave with one of the lawyers from her firm? Should we be pursuing a young, strong physique, Eloise or I?" Both girls erupted in laughter, momentarily stunned by the ridiculousness of the notion, until they noticed that their father was not joining in the amusement. "Father, please, not her. No." Eloise struggled to articulate her fear. "Ladies, pay close attention to what I have to say. Indeed, my mother has changed. She betrayed my trust. However, that doesn't imply she was unfaithful to you. Girls, yes, that's correct, Daddy," Eloise uttered, her voice trembling with emotion. "If her betrayal is tearing our family apart, then indeed she has betrayed us just as much as she has betrayed you." As the tears flowed from both girls, James soon found himself swept up in the wave of emotion, joining them in their sorrow. The girls rose to their feet, attempting to embrace their dad, while also wrapping their arms around one another simultaneously. "Dad, we need to leave this place," Thea urged. "A park lies just a couple of blocks away, offering us greater privacy for our conversation." With a few curious glances directed their way, James hastily settled the bill. Together, they strolled into the park, flanked by a girl on either side, each of them intertwined in a shared embrace. "Share with us, Dad," Thea said after they settled on a bench. "We have a right to know the extent of the situation. Are you worried we can't handle the shock?" Eloise stepped in. "We possess a level of maturity that enables us to manage this effectively." "I'm here, lost in thought about what to share with you," James started. "I concur. You are both grown-ups, and indeed you were correct. Your mother was unfaithful to all of us. I discovered my mother at home in her bed with another man, and she subsequently confessed that there had been others before him. I believe I'm still processing everything, but I understand that she and I won't be able to move past this. I have already consulted with a divorce attorney, and my mother is receiving the divorce petition today." More tears fell, and then at last, silence enveloped them as they contemplated the news and the uncertain path that lay ahead. Ladies, regardless of the circumstances, prioritize your academic responsibilities above all else. I have sufficient funds to cover your senior year at UNC. And if either or both of you are interested in pursuing graduate studies, I believe I can secure additional financial support for that as well. However, there is a reciprocal arrangement involved. He felt their gaze upon him. What was he trying to convey? "I'm willing to invest in your education, but I anticipate that you will put in the effort and achieve excellent grades." "Indeed, what Mom did complicates focusing on school," Eloise remarked. "But you mentioned that you are grown-ups, and true grown-ups, responsible, composed individuals, can manage such challenges, correct?" They exchanged glances, shed more tears, and embraced him tightly. "Indeed, indeed, dear father, you are truly remarkable, and we absolutely, positively will not disappoint you," Eloise reassured him, while Thea appeared contemplative. "Dad, Eloise has a point. We will exceed your expectations. However, what about you? Are you going to be all right? What will your next move be?" During a 2-hour drive, there's ample time for contemplation. To begin with, I want you both to understand that your words come as no surprise to me whatsoever. I have no doubt that you will keep excelling in your studies, and my pride in you will only grow stronger. In my case, my mother certainly gave me a tough time. I could retreat into solitude and simply endure, wallowing in self-pity, seeking a way to reconcile with your mother. However, I came to understand that this isn't a good fit for me. Throughout my entire adult life, I have dedicated myself to the care of others. When I began my journey with my grandparents' business, I looked after them. And once they were gone, I turned my attention to my sisters, who held their shares in the company. After that, I focused on my mom. And ultimately, I took care of you girls. It may seem like I'm expressing dissatisfaction, but that's not my intention at all. The impending sale of the company will free me from my obligations towards my sisters. Sarah has departed, along with all of you. I assure you that I will gladly support you and assist you in embarking on your journey into adulthood. What's the big deal? 2 successes out of 3 regarding the women in my life? Quite satisfactory indeed. That brings us to me. And can you believe it? I view this entire narrative of betrayal and divorce not as the most devastating chapter of my life, but rather as an opportunity to embark on a fresh journey. One that is entirely focused on nurturing and prioritizing myself. All right, Dad. Truly. That's wonderful, if you truly stand by your words, Eloise remarked. Thea harbored a touch more doubt. Father, what is the true significance of all this? Fresh beginnings? What task? Are you considering another pharmaceutical company? Are you purchasing a farm? That's an intriguing question, and I must admit, I don't have a satisfactory response. No specifics available at the moment, but this new existence will be tangible. I plan to tackle marathons, ascend mountains, swim the Pacific Ocean, conquer the Rockies, and embark on a safari adventure. I have an endless list of tasks ahead of me, and you won't believe what comes next. As I engage in these activities, there's a chance I could encounter a lovely woman who shares my interests. And who can say? How frustrating. Dad, this is truly incredible. Both girls stared at him, their mouths agape. This was their father, not just some ambitious horse. Did you truly conceive all of this during your drive from Raleigh? Inquired Thea. Indeed, that's true to some extent. But on top of that, I hardly slept, and a whirlwind of ideas was swirling in my mind. I could easily drown my sorrows in a drink, but instead, I choose to embrace this chaos and turn it into something worthwhile. Have faith in me. I will manage just fine. James departed from his daughters, showering them with hugs, kisses, and tears as he made his way back to Raleigh in the gold BMW 7 Series. Once James departed, the girls immediately reached out to their mother via phone. Greetings, a raspy voice responded when the phone rang in the Trotters' home. Mom, meet Eloise and Thea. We shared breakfast with Dad, and he delivered some distressing news. Excuse me? What was it that he mentioned? Camilla's voice quivered. Divorce felt like a harsh reality, and it stemmed from your betrayal. Dad provided us with a bit more insight, but that's essentially the gist of it. This is indeed accurate. Oh, ladies, this is quite challenging. We have been married for quite some time, and this situation? Well, it's a mistake. Yes, a significant one, in fact, more than one. However, I believe we can navigate through it together. I simply need to allow your father some time as well. Mom, Eloise interjected, please hear me out. Dad mentioned divorce. He didn't mention addressing the mistake, Mom. He was discussing infidelity. Indeed, he has a point. But that doesn't imply we can't find a solution. I expressed my willingness to do whatever it takes. Mom! It was Thea's moment to interject. Your perception seems quite distorted. He informed us that he had previously consulted with a divorce attorney. He truly mentioned that there was no way to go back for you either. Eloise and I preferred to remain neutral, yet it's important for you to grasp the situation as it truly is. Labored breaths echoed from the other end of the line. Eloise and Thea exchanged glances. Should they have traveled to Raleigh? At last, Sarah uttered her words, barely above a whisper. I understand. I understand. I understand. I made mistakes that led to the downfall of my marriage. I believe your father has a strong dislike for me, and perhaps he has good reason for it. I have engaged in repulsive actions. He advised me to hire a lawyer, and he was spot on with that as well. I apologize, ladies. I understand it's difficult for you as well. Mom, there's no need to worry about us, Eloise said. All will be well with us, and I am confident that Dad is putting forth his utmost effort. It's essential to prioritize your well-being. Engaging the services of a lawyer seems like a wise choice. Thea and I are available to head to Raleigh, if that would be helpful for you. Thank you, ladies. This is delightful. I will be fine. I simply require a bit of time to acclimate to my actions. The call ended abruptly. The girls remained uncertain about their next steps. You know, Eloise said, it's amusing, though not really amusing, that we're more concerned about Mom, the one who made this mess, than we are about Dad. They continued their conversation, ultimately choosing to stay away from home, allowing their parents to handle their issues without the involvement of their daughters. Sarah lounged in her Raleigh abode, nursing a slight hangover from the gin she had indulged in the previous night, and feeling a heavy weight of melancholy settle over her. Following her conversation with her daughters, she realized it was time to rise, put on her clothes, and step outside. Take action, she mused, as her mind wandered to the idea of perhaps purchasing another bottle of gin. The chime of the doorbell echoed through the air. Sarah pushed the door open. A young woman lingered at the doorway. How may I assist you? Sarah inquired. Absolutely, ma'am. Are you the spouse of James Carter, Sarah Carter? Indeed, it is I. What prompts your inquiry? Ma'am, you have been served, the woman stated, presenting Sarah with a folder of documents while capturing photographs. What on earth? Sarah inquired, watching the woman make her way to the vehicle. Sarah stepped back into the house and settled at the kitchen table, her gaze fixed on the enigmatic folder before her. Upon catching sight of the title of the initial document, she nearly collapsed, an application for divorce. She recalled James's final advice to her: seek legal counsel. As she sat there gazing at the kitchen that once held so many cherished moments with James, she realized that the joy of those days was lost forever due to her actions. Sarah was indeed correct. After her betrayal, she and James never came back. 6 years later, in the opulent ballroom of a lavish hotel, Sarah observed Thea twirling gracefully with her new husband, her thoughts drifting back to the past. During their teenage years, she believed that life was unbearable. Countless activities, overwhelming teenage turmoil, and a plethora of boys who were either excessively cruel or, in Sarah's eyes, overly kind to the girls. James found himself overwhelmed with the demands of his assistant role, while the legal discussions felt dreadfully tedious. Life had felt like a whirlwind back then, yet now she found herself longing for it deeply. She remained at the same law firm, immersed in the same monotonous paperwork. She envisioned, "Sarah, your wine is ready." Sarah observed her companion, the impeccably charming, middle-aged, slightly rotund, balding lawyer who had accompanied her to Thea's wedding and reception. The bride radiates beauty, reminiscent of her mother. "Thanks, Rupert. You're kind, and I appreciate the wine." He was a kind man, and she could envision a future with him if he felt the same, but he certainly wasn't James. Her gaze inevitably drifted toward James on the other side of the room. James had just come back from a mountaineering adventure in Peru, and Sarah couldn't help but think he resembled one of those bronze statues of Greek gods, tanned, remarkably fit, and even more striking than she recalled. At that moment, he was sharing smiles and laughter with Eloise and her boyfriend, while holding hands with a woman who was just as beautiful and fit as James. Eloise informed her that James had encountered the woman during a different mountaineering expedition in Costa Rica, and they had been journeying, sailing, and climbing together for several months. Sarah was overwhelmed with nausea at the mere thought of it. "Sarah," Rupert made an effort to catch her eye. "Indeed, Rupert." "Sarah, I believe it's time for us to go. You've completed your responsibilities as the mother of the bride, and lingering here, fixating on your ex-husband, isn't benefiting you in any way. It seems to me that this may not bode well for the connection we share with you. Rupert, you are kind, and you are completely correct. Allow me a moment to bid farewell to my daughters, and then we shall depart." Sarah embraced her daughters warmly, showered the newlyweds with heartfelt wishes, and despite the difficulty, chose to overlook James and his two charming girlfriends. James caught a glimpse of Sarah as she exited the hall, and a wave of nostalgia washed over him, stirring a bittersweet ache for their shared memories. As he observed her, Eloise posed a question to him. "Apologies, Eloise. Could you repeat what you were saying?" "Hey, Dad. Do you recall that unusual gold BMW 7 Series you had when you—" "Is that you, Thea?" "That morning, I enjoyed breakfast when you came to visit us at UNC. What became of that car?" "Ah, Eloise, that's quite the tale that I won't trouble you with. I borrowed this peculiar gold BMW 7 Series from a friend and eventually returned it to her. It seems to me that she has sold it. The car was undeniably unfortunate." James glanced at his friend, eager to discuss their upcoming adventure in the mountains. Thanks for watching this story on Addy Story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, share, and hit that subscribe button so you never miss a new tale. Stay tuned for more, and until next time, take care and keep living your own amazing stories.